Hot on the heels of Toyota with this very popular RAV4 hybrid, Honda has finally brought its first electrified SUV to the United States. Hi, my name is Jake Stump, you're watching Drive, Brake, Fix, Repeat, and today we're taking on the 2020 Honda CR-V Hybrid. Now, aesthetics are certainly subjective, but I don't think there's much between them. There are certain angles where I think the RAV4 hybrid looks a bit better, just as there are certain angles where I think the CR-V hybrid looks better. Though, fortunately for this high-spec touring model, the gray paint and the 19-inch wheels definitely are doing it some favors here. While the exterior styling may be debatable which is better, inside it's a totally different story. As I mentioned before, this is a fully loaded CR-V hybrid touring model, which brings in at $37 grand, which is about $2,000 less than a comparably loaded RAV4 hybrid limited. However, looking in here, you'd think it's the other way around. The caliber of the materials is just better. There's more colors, more textures, more things happening, and crucially, things just feel nicer and more expensive in here than they do in the RAV4 hybrid. In particular, I'm a huge fan of this faux wood trim. Now, sure, it's actually plastic, but it does really spruce things up and it makes this cabin look more special. Unfortunately, things are not as black and white as the CR-V has the better interior than the RAV4, because while I do love the general layout and the caliber of the materials and the way the cabin feels over the Toyota, there are definitely some downsides, like this infotainment screen. Now, what you're looking at is actually the upgraded one. If you have a base LX, you actually get a different system than this, but this is the system you'll see in the CR-V Hybrid EX, EXL, and this top-of-the-line touring model. And unfortunately, as slick as this looks, it's just not that good to use in real life. And that's because there aren't any real buttons or knobs. Now, Honda did go to the trouble of adding a physical volume knob in 2019 after getting a lot of backlash about this system, but otherwise, every single prompt is touch. And while that is a-okay, actually not right now, it's a-okay when you're just sitting here trying to do this, using the system while driving is utterly frustrating. And more than that, it has random instances of completely getting bogged down by certain prompts and going so slow. In fact, on the way to this shoot, I tried to change the channel, which you have to do by touching the screen, and it took about 10 prompts for it to actually do anything. I was just hitting the screen, and it wasn't really doing anything. It's doing great right now by comparison, but still, it's very annoying, and hopefully Honda has an update to this system in a year or so, because it's just too slow and too clunky. Now, I do have one more small grievance, and that is this area right here. Now, in the touring model, this is a wireless charging port, which is great. However, if you look up here, there are two USB charging ports. This is a 1 amp charger and a 1.5 amp quick charger, which sounds great. However, if you plug anything into these that is not a cell phone, it does not work. There are two USB charging ports in the back seat that work with anything, so why these only work with phones, I do not understand. Fortunately, I think it's the last of my nitpicks about the interior with the CR-V hybrid. The back seat is actually enormous. I love that. This just actually feels more open and spacious than a RAV4, though it could be an optical trick just because of the shape of the cabin. But I'm 6'1", 190 pounds. I have tons of headroom, tons of knee room. You can fit two of me back here very comfortably. And likewise, though the hybrid does lose some trunk space to the regular CR-V because all the batteries are tucked under the floor back there, the trunk is still enormous. Now, when you first hop in the CR-V hybrid and start driving, I bet you're gonna notice one thing in particular. The fact that this thing feels really solid going down the road. And that's not to say the RAV4 hybrid feels flinty or anything, but it does have a bit of a common Toyota problem, which is road noise and wind noise. By comparison's sake, the CR-V hybrid is just a bit quieter in the cabin. It feels more solid. Another thing you'll probably notice is the way this vehicle rides and handles. Now, there's something in the way Honda's been tuning its current crop of vehicles, and they have this really creamy, dialed-in suspension feeling. I'm not sure if it's like the shock absorbers or what, but the way this thing goes down the road is so nice and fluid. And to prove a point, I did actually go up to the canyon roads with the CR-V hybrid. Now, it's a CR-V hybrid. I'm not going to go up there and drop like a sociopath or anything, but it felt hooked up and nice, and it actually did handle a winding road quite well. Let's talk about the powertrain, because obviously if you want to pay the $2,700 price premium for the CR-V hybrid over a regular Honda CR-V, you want to know what's under the skin. And on paper, things looking pretty good. This is the same basic setup that you'd find under the hood of the Honda Accord hybrid, a vehicle I reviewed last year and very much enjoyed. It's a 2-liter inline 4-cylinder engine paired with a 1.4 kilowatt-hour electric battery pack, which is about 200 pounds of batteries under the floor. And the combined power output is 212 horsepower and 232 pound-feet of torque, which is sent to all four wheels in this case because all-wheel drive is standard in the hybrid. And what does that mean for you in the real world? Well, with 212 horsepower on tap, this is the quickest CR-V you can get, at least on paper. The regular non-hybrid CR-V features a 1.5-liter turbocharged 4-banger that kicks out 190 horsepower, which is very respectable. The biggest difference you're going to feel, however, is actually off the line, because that hybrid battery gives you instantaneous torque, gives you that real kick down low. So off the mark, this thing feels really quick and really sprightly around town. However, that power, that feeling of acceleration does diminish at freeway speed, and in particular, this thing actually feels unusually slow over about 60 miles an hour. 60, 62, 64. Hey, that wasn't bad this time. And that's because I had more hybrid battery charge. Unfortunately, once that charge diminishes, this thing notably does slow down. But even still, once we hit about 70 miles an hour, it was pretty much out of breath. Now, in case you're curious, for the numbers nerds out there, the RAV4 hybrid makes a little bit more power, 219 horsepower, and does have a slightly larger battery pack. I believe it's 1.6 kilowatt hour for reference. However, on the subject of the RAV4 hybrid, one area where the CR-V has proven to be a bit disappointing is the fuel economy. What gives? It's a hybrid. After a week of driving, the in-car trip computer says I've averaged 34 mpg, which is not that good for a hybrid. However, it actually gets worse. The EPA rates the CR-V hybrid at 35 mpg freeway, 40 mpg city, and 38 mpg combined. However, like all these hybrid cars that I test, I actually go to the gas pump and measure the real-world fuel economy because these trip computers aren't always the most accurate. And after a week of driving, which was 261 miles, I put in 8.1 gallons of fuel for a real-world fuel economy figure of just 32 mpg. Way below the EPA estimates and way behind the RAV4 hybrid, which I saw get 40 mpg in the real world. That's not good. And to be honest, the numbers left me scratching my head because, like I mentioned before, this is the same basic powertrain you get in the Honda Accord hybrid. And in the Accord hybrid, I saw a real-world figure of 42.4 mpg, which again was way below Honda and the EPA's estimates, but was still very good. So why does the CR-V hybrid get 10 less mpg than the Accord with the same powertrain? Now, certainly there is a 400-pound weight difference between the two. This weighs over 3,700 pounds, while the Accord hybrid is about 3,300 pounds, which is pretty impressive. But 400 pounds, while significant, shouldn't explain a 10 mpg disparity. This thing either has the aerodynamics of a brick, or Honda has changed the calibration or the way the computer tries to optimize the hybrid electric setup. Something in here has clearly been changed to give that huge drastic result in numbers. And at first I thought, that can't be right. How did I only get 32 mpg with a hybrid? And then I did a bit of Googling, and it turns out every outlet that has reviewed the CR-V hybrid has said the exact same thing. Car and Driver got 34 mpg. Consumer Reports said it also got way under the quoted numbers. And that's definitely disappointing to hear. Whatever Honda has changed in the powertrain, going from the Accord hybrid to the CR-V hybrid, they did it wrong. Sorry. Now, I mentioned it before, but the CR-V hybrid carries a $2,700 price premium over the regular CR-V, irrespective of which trim you pick, LX, EX, EXL, or Touring. And On paper, that doesn't sound like a very good case for the CR-V hybrid if it only does about 32, maybe 34 mpg in the real world, because the EPA rates an all-wheel drive non-hybrid CR-V at 27 mpg city, 32 mpg freeway, and 29 mpg combined. That difference in fuel economy isn't enough to justify the price premium for this vehicle, which is really disappointing. Now, I know that people watching this video might be divided into two very different camps. There are people who want a hybrid SUV, and in that case, you're probably going to go with the RAV4 hybrid just because it is so much more fuel efficient that it'll be worth the money in the end. However, there are other buyers who are like, well, I kind of like the more refined interior of the CR-V, and I kind of prefer the CR-V in general. Should I get the hybrid? And for those people, I would actually say to get the hybrid over the regular CR-V, because the CR-V hybrid is much quieter in the real world than the regular CR-V. For whatever reason, the gasoline engine in the regular CR-V can be kind of grainy and kind of noisy. And with the CR-V hybrid, it's just much quieter. And so that has value in and of itself. The fact of the matter is that it does get more MPG, whether it's 5 or 15 more. That's also an added perk. Like all new Honda vehicles on sale today, CR-V Hybrid has Honda Sensing as standard equipment. Now, that gets you features like radar guided cruise control, lane keep assist, and in this high-end touring model, blind spot monitoring in the mirrors, among other goodies. And unfortunately, Honda Sensing has been and continues to be a mixed bag for me. Now, features like the radar guided cruise control, they work great. This car has no problem identifying the car in front of me and maintaining pace relative to it. However, features like the lane keep assist are pretty shoddy. I've had multiple instances of this thing thinking I'm not in the lanes when I clearly am, and tugging at the wheel. Fortunately, you can just turn the lane keep assist off if it starts bothering you. That's what I've been doing. In the automotive world, it is extremely uncommon to have your cake and eat it too. So when you're looking at the Honda CR-V Hybrid, look at three things: fuel economy, price, and quality. Now, in my opinion, the CR-V Hybrid's interior feels of a higher quality than the RAV4 Hybrid, and this touring model is about $2,000 less expensive than a comparable RAV4 Hybrid Limited. But obviously the trade-off is fuel economy, as you've seen. And so it will come down to what you value out of a vehicle. If you want a quieter, more refined driving experience, you might actually prefer the CR-V Hybrid. I know my girlfriend in particular, she really prefers this over the RAV4, the way it feels, the way it looks, the way it drives. And there are absolutely going to be certain buyers to which this vehicle appeals. Though on the flip side, there are absolutely going to be certain buyers to which the RAV4 appeals. It looks more rugged and adventurous, it gets better fuel economy, and some people just are really won over by the Toyota badge. It's been a bit of an uphill battle with the CR-V Hybrid, I must admit, especially following the stellar performance of the Accord Hybrid I reviewed last year. However, for a certain set of buyers, the quality interior and exterior styling, as well as the competitive pricing, especially on these higher end models, will definitely appeal to certain buyers who are less concerned with high MPG numbers. In any case, guys, my name is Jake. You've been watching Drive, Brake, Fix, Repeat, and I'll see you guys next time where I go do more fun things with cars. Bye.